Hey folks, welcome back to the Markelly Farm homestead here. My name's Mark, my wife's Kelly. We run a little YouTube channel here in the middle of Nebraska. So we're glad you're with us if you've never been here before. If you're one of our returning subscribers, we love all you guys. So we're going to make some bread today in the kitchen. So stick around, we're making Amish white bread. Very good stuff. So as you can imagine, I haven't been eating a lot of bread on my diet, but I've been slowly introducing some back in. I'm eating some wheat toast now, sometimes in the morning, but just one slice. But we're going to make some Amish white bread today, but not for consumption as bread. We're going to be freeze drying a bunch of our onions from the garden. And Kelly has got information somewhere where you put bread on top of your onions when you freeze dry them, helps take up the moisture from them, and then when you're all done you can take that bread and make like panko breadcrumbs from it once it's out of the freeze dryer, and then of course do whatever you're going to do with your onions. So we're going to make bread, but you can eat it as bread. Of course, this is a fantastic, easy to make bread and really good flavor and texture. So let's get with it. So we're going to start with our dry ingredients. I always start with half of the flour that the recipe calls for because I like to get everything mixed really well and then slowly add the rest of the flour the recipe calls for in, because if you've ever made bread, sometimes you don't take as much flour, sometimes you need a little more flour because of the moisture in the flour that it gets from the air. So we've got 3 cups of our 6 cups that this recipe calls for. So we'll start adding some other of our dry ingredients. Next thing we add is 2/3 cup of just granulated sugar. I don't know about you, but once I get a cup dirty, I don't like dirty and a bunch of others. So I just eyeball 2/3, which is just a little bit over half. And that's close enough when you're baking. It's not rocket surgery. Now next thing we add is half a tablespoon of salt, which is 1.5 teaspoons. I heap it a little bit because we're using a coarser salt. So it takes a little bit more in your measuring spoon to get to what regular salt would measure. Next thing is 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. Doesn't look like I actually have that in here, but we'll see. There's 1 tablespoon. Let's see if we can find some more. All right, my fantastic wife Kelly had another container of yeast in the freezer, so we'll do a 1/2 tablespoon to make our 1.5. Now normally if you weren't real sure on your yeast, I mean we watch the dates and we use it soon enough to where we never go bad. This goes to June 2025. But we keep it in the refrigerator freezer, so our yeast is always good. We always check your date. But if you're unsure about your yeast, if it's been sitting out for a while, proof your yeast in a little bit of the water from the recipe and a little bit of the sugar. Just put it in like a little mixing cup and stir it up. And if it starts to foam up real good, your yeast is good. So that's all of our dry ingredients. We're going to just combine this real quick. Okay, next thing we're going to add is our warm water. You want pretty warm water, but don't get it over about 120 degrees. We even use a thermometer here. If you get more than 120, you're going to start killing your yeast, and you don't want to do that. But you want good warm water to get that yeast activated. And then there's also a 1/4 cup. Calls for vegetable oil, but anytime a recipe calls for vegetable oil, we'll use a healthier oil. This is avocado oil here that we're using. You can use any neutral flavored oil. I like to use one that's got monounsaturated fatty acids. So we're going to mix this up, get everything in the bowl hydrated, and then we're going to beat it around for a little bit until the mix gets kind of elastic, and we'll show you what that looks like. All right, before we get too crazy, we're going to put a towel underneath our stainless steel bowl, because if we don't, it'll mark up our countertops. And plus with the towel, our bowl spins really easy. So we'll get this going. You can see in the middle here how it's already kind of getting elastic, kind of rubbery looking. That's what you want. But this is why I like only adding about half of the flour, because you can really get this worked up, which really develops the gluten in your bread and makes for a really nice bread. Okay, you see how it's kind of pulling away from the side over here? So we're going to start incorporating our flour a cup at a time until we get to that last cup, and then we'll go about a half a cup at a time. Okay, going in with another cup. Another reason I start with less flour is because it's a lot easier to mix. It doesn't get stiff really fast where it's hard to mix. So we'll just run this around, incorporating more flour. And we can incorporate it a little faster now that it's beat up really well. We know we're going to need more than this because it's still really sticky. So let's get another cup in there. And then I kind of like to start putting it around the outside of the bowl, because when we get down to the last part, we're going to ditch this beater thing here and we're going to go with our hands. I just slopped a little flour out of the bowl, which you got to be careful of. Flour likes to fly around when it's still light. So we're going to incorporate this whole cup, and then we'll come back again. Okay, we've about got that cup worked in, so it's time to get rid of this thing. Just put a little flour on your hand and clean it off so it doesn't stick to your hand. Like that. Now I use the blade of my hand. I'm going to get about another half a cup of flour, because we don't want to get too much. And we'll go around the outside of the bowl again. So I'm going to start using the blade of my hand to scrape the bowl and working this flour in, because we want to kind of clean the bowl as we go. Dough's nice and warm. That's a good thing from that warm water. Now this is a basic bread dough. A lot of the doughs that we make have egg in them, stuff like that. So now we're going to start kneading, and then as we knead and turn the bowl, we scrape the bowl, bring all that dry stuff up on top, knead it in. We're getting close. We've only got 5.5 cups in the bowl, and that may be all we need. Because it's kneading really well, it's not sticking to my hands. If it's sticking to your hands, probably need a little more flour. Or sticking to the bowl, you might need a little more flour. But I'm pretty sure this is going to incorporate in nicely. Sorry, I keep bumping the camera. Looking good, feeling good. I think we're going to be about right. We're not going to need that other half a cup of flour. This is feeling real good. We want to keep kneading. I like kneading for about 10 minutes or so. But we won't keep you here for that. And as we knead and this gets closer and closer together, it's going to start picking all this stuff up here on the bottom of the bowl. So I'll come back when this is fully kneaded. All right, we're just about there. You see our dough is getting smooth. And our dough starting to stick to our hands in the bowl. So we don't want to go with a whole bunch of flour. Just get a little bit in your hand and just kind of a sprinkle. That's all you need. It's a fine line you don't want to cross. You don't want to get your dough too dry. That makes for dry bread. You want a really moist, tender bread. And I think we're just about done with this kneading process. The dough's looking really good. Now some people will do this in their stand mixer, but I like going hands-on. There's nothing wrong with that. And you don't need all that expensive equipment to make good bread. People back in the day didn't have a KitchenAid, so it's all right. So now that see how the dough is nice and smooth? You can see one of those little black things from our Redmond salt. It's got minerals in it. But that dough looks beautiful. So we're going to get some cooking spray. We're going to spray the inside of this bowl so as this rises it doesn't stick. Now even with my cooking spray, I try to use a good one. This is coconut oil. So we'll just go around the bowl. Kind of spray the top of the bread, underneath the bread. Then I like to bless the bread like that. And we're going to cover it up. We're going to let it rise. Probably going to take an hour or two. We're going to let it rise double. Now we're using our Dakota made all-purpose unbleached flour. It's really good stuff. A lot better for you than the bleached. Now cover your bowl with a lint-free towel. I have these really lightweight towels that we use for bread. Mom made these years ago out of like bed sheet material, and they work perfect for bread. So we'll see you when that's double. I guess I should mention too, always determine what double's going to look like so you know when this thing rises double. So when this rises double, we'll probably be about halfway up the bowl here once it spreads out and stuff, and that'll be good. Now you might think making bread is real time consuming, but it's really not, because you can walk away from the process a couple hours at a time. So it gives you time if you're doing laundry or house chores or whatever around the house. You can come do one step and then take off and go do whatever else you're doing. You're not married to the whole process, the whole 8 hours that you're making it. All right, let's check our bread. Looks like it's doubled. We'll show you a side-by-side picture and you can be the judge. Okay, now that we're double, we're going to take our two big loaf pans. These are like bread loaf pans, not like meatloaf pans. They're pretty good size, like a normal size bread loaf. And we'll spray these with some of our coconut oil. You could also fold some parchment and throw in there, but this will work just fine. Now we want to punch our dough down just like that. We're going to deflate it is all we're doing. And then I can feel the dough. It's not terribly sticky. So what we're going to do now is we're going to basically divide our dough in half. Like that. And then we're going to take our one piece of dough here, we're going to spread it out kind of like a rectangle. Move it around a little bit. Try to get both sides kind of even, about like that. And then I want to roll it like this. And then we're going to put it in our loaf pan. Just like that, with like the seam side down. So that's going to rise up in that pan. And we'll do the same thing to this one. Push it out with your fingers. Make sure your counter's clean. Then we're going to roll it up. like that. Get our loaf pan, throw it in there. That one looks a lot better than the other one. I might redo this one. That way the top looks nice. But if we turn it over. Now we'll roll it, look a little smoother on that side, like that. Push it back together. All right, so now we're going to get our loaves and we're going to cover those with our same towel. We're going to wait till those rise double and then we'll be ready to bake. You'll see these pop up above the pan. Okay, it's been about an hour and a half. Let's check our bread. Looks good, ready to bake. So let's turn our oven on 325. All right, let's get these babies in the oven. Probably going to be in the oven about 30 minutes, but we're going to check them at 20. Okay, our 20-minute check. Let's take a look. Not quite brown enough. We're probably going to go the full 30 minutes. All right, bread is done. Got it pulled out of the oven. Now, normally we would brush the top with butter, but since we're going to put this in the freeze dryer and not consume it as bread, we're not going to do that because we don't want to add any additional fat. But it's looking real good. Okay, we got our bread sliced. Look at this beautiful light and airy bread. That would make a beautiful sandwich right there. Well, that's it for Kelly's Amish white bread recipe. I hope you enjoyed it. It's really good bread. Kelly could make those on the weekend and it would last us all week long. And the best thing about it, we knew exactly what was in that bread. I think I told you before, I had some bread here in our cupboard for about 5 weeks and it never molded. So that's pretty scary what they have to put in that bread to have it be able to do that. But you don't want to keep this for more than about a week because it'll start molding. So eat it up. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us here at the farm.